Moving on to college football today. And the big story over the last week or so has been what is going to happen with Nico Iamaleava. Now, everybody knows now that he has left Tennessee. He is now going to be heading to Westwood to be a part of UCLA's football program. And I think it's kind of amazing how this has kind of been handled in the court of public opinion and how Nico's camp has been outspoken about making this a football decision. I completely disagree with that, by the way. But the chatter coming out of Nico's camp was that they were looking for assurances about them improving his weaponry on the perimeter at wide receiver, improving his offensive line. Like those were all the reasons why Nico was unsettled at Tennessee. I think it's ridiculous. I think this was purely about economics of the situation. Because if you look at where he ends up leaving Tennessee. That was a playoff team a year ago. And yes, there were some pieces that needed to be replaced off last year's roster. But if you look at the portal additions, I think they adequately address some of those concerns. Because if you're going to cite the reasons and how uncomfortable it is playing for Tennessee and going into the season not knowing what it's going to be surrounded by, then how do you end up at UCLA? Like you can't connect those two dots. You can't sit there and say, oh, this was a football decision, and then go to a place that was 95th out of 134 in yards per play, that was 126th in scoring, that ran for just over 3 yards a carry, and that allowed 34 sacks, which was 107th in college football. Now, I'll say this, new coaching staff, Eric Bieniemy, the OC from last year, he is now gone. In comes Tino Sinceri, but he's the first-time offensive coordinator from Indiana, and I love Tino Sinceri. I've known Tino Sinceri since he was a college player. I've been friends with Tino Sinceri's dad for 20 years. I think he's going to be a great coach. I love his personality. I love that he played the position. I love the style of offense that he's going to be inserting there at UCLA. But at the same time, you cannot possibly tell me that the UCLA situation is less cloudy than the situation that you had at Tennessee. That's absurd. Okay, that's absolutely absurd, especially when you look at the wide receivers that they have at their disposal. You got Mikey Matthews, who has played at Cal, who's played at Utah. You got Jaden Wilson, who's played at Arkansas. Those guys both are coming in. They're transfer portal additions. They might end up becoming incredible players this upcoming year for the Bruins. But in their career, they have 79 catches between the two of them. So it's not like those two guys are automatic, no doubt about it, improvements over what's been had there in quite some time. They also had to go out and get 4 offensive line transfers this offseason. So while the intentions of what UCLA are trying to do and to surround Nico Iamaleava with, I think the intentions for UCLA are excellent. They're great. They're trying to go out and make their program better. But you can't, on any possible situation, explain to me that UCLA's situation is better than the situation that you would have had at Tennessee. Now, many, many, many people have sit there and tried to explain why this was going on, why this had happened. And frankly, I didn't think he was going to end up at UCLA. Now, they were one of the teams that was referenced early on, but because of the situation with Nico Iamaleava's brother, Madden, who committed to UCLA for about half the year last year, half of the recruiting process, he was going to become a Bruin. Well, flipped on the first day of the early signing period and decided to go with Arkansas. And that was something that nobody really saw coming. So that kind of left people at UCLA surprised. And I thought, as a result, maybe Nico would be untouchable because of how the family handled the recruitment of Madden, which I think is intriguing because we've now found that teams are willing to overlook a lot in order to improve their roster right now. So that is one area that is extremely interesting. Another one, did Tennessee's supporting cast actually impact Nico's decision? No. This was, every single person that I've talked to said that this was purely a leveraged play. This was a decision that was based entirely around economics. And I think as a result, Nico Iamaleava's team overplayed their hand. As a result, he's taking a considerable pay cut. Now, people have speculated that it's around $1 million. I don't know that for a fact. I can't confirm that or deny that. I don't know exactly how much it is, but I do know this. Regardless of the money that was left on the table for 2025, how much money will potentially be left on the table as far as lifetime earnings are concerned? Because yes, okay, I understand. I can look at a contract and what it's worth today. I can see that 2.5 million is $1 million more than 1.5 million. And by the way, that was the alleged value of his contract at Tennessee versus his alleged contract at UCLA. I can see that there's $1 million there. And well, hey, I know he lost a bunch there. How much did he lose by leaving Tennessee, where he could have, over the course of the next year, 2 years, become one of the all-time great quarterbacks in Tennessee football history? Like, that's the value that people right now, these college players and the people around them, that's what they're not thinking about. I've drawn this picture on multiple different occasions for a lot of people in trying to make sure players understand that the money earned today is not a tangible asset compared to what could be made down the road. Let's think about Isaiah Bond for a moment. Remember Isaiah Bond? He was at Alabama 2 years ago. Isaiah Bond went out against Auburn in the 2023 season and made one of the great plays in the history of Alabama football. One of the most legendary plays in the history of the Iron Bowl. 4th and 31 conversion. He catches it in the back left corner of the end zone. Touchdown Alabama. They survive and ultimately go on to make the college football playoff. That catch has been immortalized by Alabama fans and many by art. People are drawing paintings of it. People are profiting off of that. You know who's not profiting off of that? Isaiah Bond. Because Isaiah Bond, after the fact, went from an Alabama legend where he'd never have to pay for another drink in Tuscaloosa the rest of his life, and probably would have had many opportunities to potentially make money because of having participated in that play. Instead, he leaves to go to Texas the following year, and now Alabama wants nothing to do with him. That's how much money was potentially left on the table. Okay, yeah, you can't measure it. You can't put a price tag on it right now, but yes, well, maybe $1 million was lost by Isaiah Bond, or $1 million was lost by Nico Iamaleava, or gained, in Isaiah Bond's case, he made more at Texas than he would have at Alabama, but because he left Alabama, he now no longer has earning potential in Tuscaloosa. What kind of money was left on the table by Nico Iamaleava? Had he gone out, had an incredible year this upcoming year, made the playoffs, made it to New York as a Heisman Trophy finalist, and graduates as an all-time great Tennessee quarterback, what would that contract have actually been worth? There's no telling. But I would imagine it's significantly more than what could be earned at UCLA. So you catching my drift there? Yeah, we could talk about the NFL and the NFL prospects, and maybe he goes on to become the first overall pick. And I certainly hope that for Nico. I hope that happens. But people are walking away from good situations where they could have a lifetime of earnings from one specific school in favor of the, hey, I got to get mine today. And ultimately, that's a very short-sighted viewpoint, especially when taking into account what Nico could have been, or what Isaiah Bond could have been, or what several other players could have been for their school had they just stayed put for a little bit longer.